Hi, good morning everyone. Welcome to today's licensing hearing. It's Friday the 19th of March 2021 and it's 10:30 a.m. The hearing today is to review the licensed premises of the Bolton Polish shop on 313 and 315 Derby Street. We'll just start off with going through the agenda. I'm the chair for today's meeting. My name is Councillor Dean. I'm also joined by Councillor Newell and Councillor Morris, who are here today as well. Are there any declarations of interest from the councillors?
No.
Thank you.
No, Chair.
Thank you. I'll just briefly talk through the procedure. I'm sure you're all aware, but for those of you who may not be, basically it's a discussion-led hearing led by myself, and we've received the bundle from the licensing team, and we've managed to have a look at that. So if there's any further updates, we'll get them from the licensing officer. Having done that, we'll have an opportunity to ask some questions. Then we'll go to the other parties that are here as well. We have a representative from Trading Standards and JTI. They'll both give their version of events, and we'll all have an opportunity to ask them questions before we go over to the license holder themselves and their legal representation. Once they've put their case forward, we'll have an opportunity to ask them questions as well. Then we'll follow on by summarising, and following the summaries, brief summaries, we'll retire to make a decision. Once that decision has been made, we'll write to the licensee holder within the next 5 days to give them a copy of our decision. If they're not happy with the decision, then they'll have 21 days to appeal at the Magistrates Court. So that's the procedure, but I do apologise, I've not managed to introduce some of the officers that are here today. So joining us today from the licensing department is Mrs. Pritchard. From committee admin, we have Mrs. Ridge, and our legal advisor today from the legal department is Miss Hamer. And Trading Standards, we have Mr. Liam Kelly, and from JTI we have Mr. Howell. The license holder that we have with us today is Mr. Gareb, and his legal advisor is Mrs. Cartmel. So those are the introductions done, and we've talked about the procedure, so we'll actually move to the review now of the premises. So it's over to you, Mrs. Pritchard, from licensing. We've managed to look at the bundle that you sent us a few days ago, and is there anything you'd like to add in addition to what's being written in the bundle?
Chair, no, there's nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mrs. Pritchard from councillors?
No.
No,
Okay.
thank you, Chair.
Any questions from Trading Standards or JTI?
No.
Thank you.
Nothing from me.
Right, thank you. Do we have any questions from the licensee holder or the legal representation?
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're now going to move over to Mr. Kelly from Trading Standards.
Thank you, Chair. The application hopefully has been read by everybody. I have nothing more to add apart from there's a small error in the application. The application mentions that the test purchase cost £6, but it actually cost £7, which is still a long way short of the genuine figure of £25. But that's a small error in the application.
Well, thanks for pointing that out. Is there anything further you'd like to add?
Not at this stage, no.
Right. Do we have any questions from councillors for Mr. Kelly?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay. Any questions from Any other parties or officers?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we'll move on to Mr. Howell from JTI, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
The only point I'd like to bring out from the written submission that I made was the question mark about the ownership of a shop when a previous test purchase referenced in our representation was made, which was in July 2018, where our operative was able to buy amber leaf tobacco for £15 at that time. So again, that was non-UK duty paid tobacco and illegal. So the point I'm trying to make is, was there a history of repeat behaviour at the store, if indeed in 2018 it was under the same ownership as it is now? That's all I'd like to add.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Any questions for Mr. Howell from councillors?
No, thank you, Chair.
No, thanks.
Any questions from officers?
No, thank you, Chair.
Right. Any questions from legal representative or the licensee holder?
Could I just clarify the date in 2018 when the test purchase was?
25th of July 2018.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. So we'll move on now to the licensee holder and their legal representation. So Mr. Gareb or Mrs. Cartmel, it's over to you now.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, councillors.
Morning.
This is a licensed premises based in Bolton. It has had a license since 2015, and since 2015 the license holder has run the premises, he thought, without incident. Now, reference has just been made to a previous purchase that took place in 2018. 2018 was when my client went to Iraq to get married. He got married in 2018 and his child, and speaking to him, he wasn't unaware of any other issues apart from the current issue that we're here for. The only thing he says it could have been is during that period when he went home, he did leave someone else in charge of the premises until he came home with his new wife. The review has been brought on the basis of a test purchase that was done in August 2020. It was a single test purchase where a packet of amber leaf tobacco was sold for £7. I think that's just been consistent. Following my client being notified of the test purchase and receiving the papers, he immediately took steps to he sacked the member of staff that was responsible for the sale. This information was told to the Trade Standards Officer or the licensing officer that visited. There have been, according to my client, no issues at this premises since he had it in 2015. The test purchase in 2018 was a complete surprise to him, and he was believing the only issue there was the current test purchase. He took a gentleman on, and he was on a trial. I think he'd only been working for a few days when the actual test purchase took place. The tobacco, you'll notice from the evidence located within the store. The evidence provided by JTI states that the gentleman went outside the premises to source the tobacco. My client hasn't been in trouble for anything. He has a clear record, and he has had no previous issues with the licensing department, and has always strives to work with the licensing authorities. The incident that took place in 2020 was extremely concerning to my client. He's a 36-year-old gentleman now. He's a married man with a young baby. He's built a life in England. He came over here when he was 17. He was granted asylum in 2002. His parents were killed in Iraq. He had to come over here. He worked for a number of years in factories, saved up enough money to be able to purchase a business. He wanted to have a settled life in England, and that's why, following the purchase of the shop, he started building a life for himself. And then in 2018, his current wife, who's from the same area in Iraq that he's from. So he did spend several months in 2018 out of the country, where since 2018, he has run the premises. The premises it's a lovely little shop. I've been in. There's a meat counter at the back. The staff are helpful and they are knowledgeable. I have been in and conducted staff training to ensure that all the staff understand their responsibilities under the Licensing Act, and also responsibilities with regards to illicit tobacco. The staff have now been told that they have a policy where alcohol and tobacco shouldn't be brought onto the premises. There's a set policy saying that alcohol and tobacco shouldn't be brought onto the premises, not even if the staff have their own cigarettes that they've brought back from abroad. They are still not allowed in the premises. The CCTV system has been upgraded, and the license holder has taken all steps he can to ensure that this sort of incident doesn't happen again. He now knows that he needs to review his CCTV periodically to check what the staff are doing, to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Also, I've been through some training with him on recruitment staff and the type of staff that he wants working in the premises. I've gone through checks that need to be done, such as your immigration checks, and also making sure that you find out if there's been any previous issues with the people. Have they worked at premises before? Have they ever been in trouble? You can't just take somebody on nowadays and let them come and work in the shop. There are checks that you have to do to ensure that the staff don't take advantage of the situation when the owner's away. I think the licensing officers have been in a couple of times and spoken to the owner, and he has indicated that he sacked the member of staff and that he wants to fully cooperate with the licensing authority going forward. I don't know if there's anything else my client would like to add. Would you like to add anything? No? No? Sorry. It's a bit strange, counsellors, because it's over the phone. He's a little bit shy. No, there's nothing else that he would like to add. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
That's fine. Thank you for that, Mrs. Cartmel. Do we have any questions from councillors?
Yes, please, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Newell.
Thank you. I've got two questions, Miss Cartmel. Firstly, the person that actually made the transaction in the shop with this tobacco, is he a friend of the proprietor, or is he a relative?
No, he's not a friend or a relative. And what happens, the Kurdish community are like the English community about 500 years ago, and they all know through word of mouth. So it was he came in, and obviously he knows the Kurdish community in Bolton, and he'd only just got a work permit through, and he asked for a trial to work at the premises. He wasn't a friend of the owner. He was actually a previous customer.
Right, and does your client understand that ultimately he is responsible for every transaction that takes place in that shop?
Yes, ma'am, he does. He has always understood that. I think the only thing we probably have to tighten up is the procedures on employing staff and being careful who you trust. I've explained to him everything that's done in that shop is done in your name. If someone does something wrong, it's not them doing it, but they are dragging your reputation through the mud. So when it comes to employing staff, you have to do those checks, because if you don't, then ultimately will be held responsible, which is why he understands that the review, is properly brought. There was an issue at the premises, and if anything, he thanks Trading Standards for bringing it, because it highlighted to him some gaps in his procedures within the store.
Right, so your client does accept the responsibility for this incident then?
Well, he accepts that the gentleman was working in his shop under his authority. He doesn't accept any responsibility for anything to do with illicit tobacco, but he accepts that he should have been better monitored. Yeah, I think that would be the way to.
Yeah,
like,
but if he's accepting responsibility for every transaction that happens in that shop, that follows that he's accepting responsibility for this incident too. He is responsible for the actions of his staff.
Absolutely, ma'am. I can't disagree with that whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cartmel. Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Councillor Morris, over to you.
My question is the person that was selling it, I presume he's not working for him any longer?
Gosh, no.
Pardon?
No, absolutely not. No, he was immediately dismissed. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Cartmel, I have a question for you. You're saying it's on stage, and I can't remember the date. If you could repeat that, please. That your client was Mr. Gara was out of the country. He was in. He was out of the country. Do you think it would have been worth presenting any proof of that, i.e., a marriage certificate with a date on it, or a passport? Maybe with an entry-exit stamp, or even, an airline ticket to prove that he was out of the country.
I think I would have to go and get the dates that he was out of the country, but there was also, this is the year that he was getting married. So even when he was in the country, he was distracted, I'd say, at that time. So, in hindsight, if we'd have known, proof would have been required, but I would have thought that my client is a man of good character, and him saying that he was out of the country, that's usually good enough for any panel.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions from officers?
No questions from Trading Standards at this stage.
Anything from licensing from Mrs. Pritchard?
No, I have no questions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll move over to the next section of the meeting, which is the summaries. So Mrs. Pritchard, it's over to you first.
Thank you, Chair. So you've heard from Trading Standards, from the representative from JTI, from the licence holder and his representative. And in light of what you've heard, you're asked to consider whether any steps are necessary to promote the 4 licensing objectives, in particular the prevention of crime and disorder, and take any of the steps outlined in the report at section 5 as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pritchard. Mr. Kelly, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Home Office guidance in relation to the Licensing Act says there are certain criminal activities that should always be treated particularly seriously, and this includes the storage of smuggled tobacco. Now, the guidance carries on and says that enforcement agencies will use the review process effectively to deter such activities. And where the crime prevention objectives being undermined through the premises being used to further crimes, it's expected that revocation is seriously considered, even in the first instance. Now, the Home Office says it's serious, a serious matter. So it's good to be reminded why information supplied by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs shows that apart from it costing the country billions of pounds in lost revenue, there are unspecified costs to the health service, to people's lives. It undermines public health. It makes it harder to give up the habit, easier for children to start. And it's a trade dominated globally by organised criminals. And regardless of the explanations that we've heard today, it remains a fact that cheap illegal tobacco could be bought from these premises. Okay.
Thank you for that. Mr. Howell, would you like to summarise, please?
Yes, I'd just like to restate the fact it's been confirmed now that the current ownership has been in place over the period of the last two test purchases, regardless of him being out of the country when the first one took place. And the way the products were sold were similar in both cases. So the product was retrieved from outside the store. So obviously this is a way to prevent detection of tobacco in the store should trading standards conduct a raid on a store. So this is a typical way that products are held and sold. So to us it would appear, or sorry, to me it would appear this is part of an ongoing activity, and obviously we would like if it was possible, to have the license revoked.
Thank you for that, Mr. Howell. So it's over to Mr. Gareb and Mrs. Cartmel to summarise, please.
Thank you, Chair. And first of all, this isn't an ongoing course of conduct that's happened. There was an isolated incident. If there were genuine concerns, and we've just heard at length about the issues with illegal tobacco and how dangerous it is and how it's linked to organised crime, and then to say that this premises has been involved in the sale of illicit tobacco all the way through, but nobody has taken any steps. If there was a genuine concern that this premises was involved in illegal tobacco, why hasn't the shop been raided on all the other times when trading standards have been out? This is not a problem premises. Out of all the premises, there's been an isolated incident recently. There was no tobacco found on the premises. It was a member of staff. You can see from the CCTV, it isn't my client, and my client isn't there. So this isn't a premises that is involved in organised crime. This is, a young guy that's trying to run a business with a young family, and he has to rely on staff. His daughter's only 9 months old at the minute, so she's, he's had a young baby for a long while. It's not the situation where he's selling illicit tobacco and he has no regard for the objectives. As soon as he found out that the tobacco had been sold in his premises, the member of staff got sacked immediately. The licensing authority had been into the premises, and he told them, weeks ago, that the member of staff had been sacked and all the remaining staff had been trained. So I'd like just to put the issues at this premises into perspective. This shop has been running since 2015. There's been no prosecutions, no warning letters, no complaints, no previous reviews. This is the first time that anybody has come to my client and said, we have concerns about the premises. The Licensing Act is about partnership working. This isn't about, the big stick approach. The authorities need to work with the licence holders to avoid this thing happening. Licence holders straight away have sacked the member of staff, worked with the authorities, has retrained the staff, and has said, right, now I'm on notice, fair enough. Any future he accepts that he has no excuse for not properly supervising the staff. But this is the first time the council or trading standards or anyone has come to him and told him there's an issue. And straight away, he has acted proactively. He has gone, at great expense, he has trained, he has tried to get the best advice that he can get going forward to ensure that there are no problems in the future. But he is a British citizen now. He has a wife here. He has a young baby. So he's a gentleman that that is going through his life at the minute. He's just starting his life, and to be involved in the sale of illicit cigarettes would be catastrophic. And he's waiting. He's just got a mortgage that's gone through. He's waiting to move into his new house after lockdown. So he's not going to do anything to endanger the life of his and his family. The Licensing Act is a permissive piece of legislation. You're probably sick of hearing me saying that now. We're not here to decide the innocence or guilt, and we're not here to punish my clients. The courts are there to punish offenders. If there were any issues with regards to my client's culpability, then that's the correct forum. The Licensing Act is a problem-solving piece of legislation. The problem has been made aware to my client now. Now he's aware of it. He has put the measures in place to deal with it. And you have effectively solved the problem. Now, should a problem arise in future, you may want to mark this by way of a short suspension. And I'd suggest a period of a 1 week suspension, bearing in mind it wasn't my client that had anything to do with the tobacco. It's not as if he's purchased it off someone and not done any checks. It's not as if he's known anything about it. So I think a 1 week suspension would act as a deterrent, and it would mark the incident, and it would focus his mind going forward that any future issues with regards to his staff would mean that the license would be, significantly in danger. There are conditions that could be added to the license if you're minded to. The conditions with regards to staff training with regards to tobacco, and possibly there could be a condition that would help to do with the recruitment of staff, which seems to be where the issue has arisen. The options to you are to add conditions, to suspend the license, or ultimately to revoke the license. Revocation is the ultimate sanction. There's nowhere else you can go with a revocation, where the Licensing Act is meant to be a stepped approach. So it's advising people, telling them what they're doing wrong, giving them the tools to be able to comply, and then if there's an issue, to work with them, unless it's a very, very blatant disregard of the law. In my submission, this isn't a blatant disregard of the law. This is someone who has put their eye off the ball, but who has made every endeavour to put things right. I don't intend to go through anything further. Thank you very much for your time, councillors.
Thank you, Mrs. Cartmel. Is there anything else that your client would like to add?
Would you like to add anything? No, he's very quiet. I think he's a bit shy, sir.
Okay, that's fine. So thank you for that. So we'll retire now to make a decision, and as I said before, you'll get the decision in writing within the next 5 working days. So if we could now thank you for attending, those that have participated. So if you could leave now and allow us to make a decision.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Could we also finish the live transmission, please?